Relevance is earned, not owed. One of the most dangerous lies we are ever told is that we are automatically important. It sounds nice, doesn't it? And you matter, just as you are. It's a comforting phrase. But comfort without truth is poison. Because while every human life has inherent worth, social relevance, being seen, heard, respected, has to be earned. It's not gifted. It's not distributed equally. It's a currency based on value, and value is forged through effort, competence, and responsibility. If you are being ignored, there is a reason, and before you point the finger outward, you must dare to ask, have I earned the right to be noticed? That's not a cruel question. It's a necessary one. We live in a world flooded with voices. Everyone is shouting into the void on social media, in classrooms, in workplaces, in families. Attention is scarce. It's the most precious commodity in the modern world. And like anything scarce, it goes where it's deserved. You don't get to walk into a room, any room, social, professional, personal, and expect people to orbit around you just because you showed up. It's your duty to become someone who commands attention, not demands it. That starts with competence. If you want people to listen to you, you must first ensure that you have something worth saying. That requires depth. It requires struggle. It requires time spent reading, thinking, observing, and refining your thoughts. You cannot shortcut wisdom. You cannot fake insight. People know when you're shallow. They can sense when you're parroting empty words, and the human mind instinctively filters out what isn't real. If your contribution doesn't pierce the noise, it gets discarded, unintentionally, automatically. Not because others are cruel, but because they're filtering for truth. Next, you must master discipline. There's nothing more invisible than unchanneled potential. You could have all the talent in the world, but if it's undirected, undisciplined, it's worthless. Relevance is not given to those who merely could be great. It's given to those who are consistently useful, sharp, prepared. If you're unreliable, if you show up late, if your work is half finished, if your words lack conviction, then you don't deserve to be heard. You haven't built the credibility necessary for influence. Harsh, perhaps, but necessary, because the world is demanding. It has to be. Resources are limited. Time is finite. And so people must make decisions every moment about what to attend to and what to ignore. If you're overlooked, don't assume it's injustice. First, assume responsibility. That word, responsibility, is the hinge everything turns on. Relevance follows those who shoulder responsibility. When you take ownership of your behavior, your thinking, your future, people take you seriously. You walk differently. You speak differently. You are different. And the world responds to that, because deep down, everyone is looking for someone who has their act together, not perfectly, but genuinely. People trust those who are actively pursuing order. That kind of person becomes relevant, not because they shout the loudest, but because they radiate stability in a chaotic world. You want people to notice you? Then stop chasing attention and start chasing excellence. Excellence is magnetic. It draws attention without asking. It doesn't need a platform to speak. Its existence is a message. The sharper your character, the clearer your voice. And when your voice is clear, people will listen, not out of politeness, but out of necessity. This is the path. Earn relevance through depth, discipline, and responsibility. Accept that you are not owed visibility, and then become someone so valuable, so well-formed, that visibility becomes inevitable. Let others chase applause. You chase truth. Let others market their image. You build substance. And in time, the silence you once felt, the isolation, the invisibility, it will shift. Because you'll have become someone the world cannot afford to ignore. So stop waiting to be seen. Start becoming someone worth seeing. Silence reveals priorities. Not just yours. When someone ignores you, doesn't respond to your messages, overlooks your presence, fails to acknowledge your contribution. It stings. And the most natural reaction is to internalize that silence as rejection, as a sign that you're not good enough. But the reality is far more complex and far more revealing. Silence is not empty. It's full of meaning. When people go quiet, when they withhold recognition or connection, they are speaking in the most primal language we have, prioritization. And here's the truth that many don't want to face. If someone isn't paying attention to you, it's because, at some level, you're not their priority. That might sound harsh, but it's not meant to be cruel. It's meant to wake you up. We all rank things in our lives, whether consciously or unconsciously. Our time, energy, attention, these are limited resources. So we spend them where we see value, where we perceive benefit, where we feel meaning. And when someone withholds their attention from you, you're witnessing the outcome of that internal value system. But here's where it gets difficult. We often assume that if people ignore us, they are at fault, that they're selfish, shallow, disloyal, inattentive. And sometimes that's true. But more often than not, their silence is just a reflection of what they find important. And you may not be on that list. Not because you're worthless, but because you're not essential to their current narrative. Now, that can feel like a brutal realization, but it's also incredibly clarifying, because when you recognize that silence reveals their values, you can stop taking it personally and start using it strategically. You must ask yourself, am I expecting loyalty from someone who never saw me as significant? Am I giving my energy to people who have no intention of reciprocating? Am I misreading my place in their story? And here's the deeper psychological point. Silence also reveals your own priorities. If you're constantly bothered by being ignored, it means something in you is deeply attached to their validation. You've placed emotional importance on being seen by them, perhaps more than is wise. Why? What are you trying to prove? And to whom? Sometimes we chase people who ignore us because we're repeating old psychological wounds. Maybe you grew up feeling unseen, unheard. Maybe you're trying to rewrite that script by forcing someone to finally notice you. But here's the brutal truth. If you keep needing attention from people who consistently ignore you, you're not pursuing connection, you're pursuing self-abandonment. You're abandoning your dignity, your energy, and your self-worth by fixating on those who have already made their decision. And their decision was silence. But silence isn't just the end of communication, it's the beginning of clarity. It tells you this person doesn't prioritize you right now. It tells you you may have misjudged the depth of that relationship. It tells you you are pouring water into a vessel with a hole in it. And once you see that clearly, you're free to redirect your energy. This is not bitterness, this is realism. You cannot force someone to value you. You can only become so valuable that others feel the cost of your absence. That starts with letting go of your need for approval. That starts with observing the silence, not reacting to it. That starts with saying, I see where I stand, now I'll move accordingly. The moment you stop taking silence as rejection and start taking it as information is the moment you gain power, because now, instead of begging for attention, you're making decisions. You're building boundaries. You're protecting your time. You're reevaluating your priorities. And perhaps most importantly, you're beginning to surround yourself with people who do see you, who do respond, who do reflect back the value you offer. So let silence speak, let it teach you. Let it sting, yes, but let that sting be the spark that wakes you up. Because in the end, the people who want you in their lives make room, and the ones who don't need to be chased. They've already spoken. You just have to learn how to listen. Discomfort is a compass. Follow it. Pain is not your enemy. Discomfort is not a malfunction. These are not things to be medicated away, numbed out, or suppressed. They are messages, and often the most honest ones you'll ever receive. Discomfort is a compass. It's your body and mind's way of pointing you toward what matters, what's broken, what's misaligned. When you're ignored by a person, a group, a world you thought would care, it hurts. That sting, that ache in your chest, that sudden drop in your stomach when your worth feels invisible, that's not weakness, that's data. Most people run from discomfort. They drown it in distraction. They scroll, binge, sleep, complain, anything to avoid that inner signal screaming, pay attention. Something isn't right. But if you want to grow, if you truly want to evolve, you need to do something far more courageous. Move toward it. Sit with the discomfort. Feel it fully. And then interrogate it. Ask it questions. Why does being ignored hurt so much? Is it because you placed your self-worth in someone else's hands? Is it because you expected affirmation from someone who was never capable of giving it? Is it because deep down you doubt your own value, and their silence only confirmed your worst fears? This is brutal work. It's not soft. It's not glamorous. It's not inspirational in the Instagrammable sense. But it's real. And real transformation only comes from confronting what's real. You cannot outrun what you refuse to examine. Discomfort is the signal that something inside you is ready to grow. Like a muscle being torn in the gym, your identity sometimes needs to be stretched, painfully, before it can rebuild into something stronger. If you're being ignored and it's tearing you apart, that's not a sign that you're broken. That's a sign that something within you is crying out for attention, not from them, from you. What have you neglected in yourself? What truth have you buried? What part of you has been screaming while you've been chasing validation in places that have none to offer? Discomfort, then, becomes a mirror. It shows you not only who others are, but who you've become in the process of seeking them. Have you bent yourself into shapes just to be seen? Have you shrunk your truth to fit their preferences? Have you edited your voice to avoid their silence? If the answer is yes, then that pain you feel right now, that's not just rejection, that's self-betrayal. And here's the hard truth. There is no growth without pain. There is no awakening without discomfort. There is no breakthrough without breakdown. Every worthwhile transformation starts with a crack in the facade, and it hurts. But within that pain is power. Because discomfort also tells you what matters to you. If it hurts that you're not respected, maybe it's because you know you're meant to be someone who commands respect. But you haven't stepped fully into that potential yet. If it stings that you're overlooked, perhaps it's because you've been too passive, too afraid, too hidden, waiting for permission that will never come. So, what do you do with this discomfort? You follow it. You let it lead you into the work. You let it shape your questions and sharpen your insight. You ask, what can I learn here? What must I change? What do I need to stop tolerating? What version of myself must I bury to become the one I'm meant to be? Most people avoid these questions. And that's why most people stay stuck. But if you are willing to lean into the discomfort, to face it, to wrestle with it, to mine it for its message, you will emerge different. Not just tougher, clearer, stronger, more aligned. Eventually, the sting of being ignored won't paralyze you. It will guide you. It will become a signal, not of your inadequacy, but of where your energy no longer belongs. And it will steer you, over time, toward the life, the people, the work that actually sees you. Discomfort is not your punishment. It's your teacher. Follow it. Don't chase attention. Command respect. There's a trap many people fall into, especially in a world that runs on likes, views, shares, and shallow validation. The trap is this. You start believing that attention is the same thing as worth. That being noticed, being seen, being talked about, whether positively or negatively, is a sign that you're doing something meaningful. But attention is cheap. It's easy to get. You can provoke it. You can fake it. You can even degrade yourself for it. And the world will reward you with fleeting glances and hollow applause. But understand this, attention is not the same as respect, and chasing the former almost always costs you the latter. When you chase attention, you put your self-worth into the hands of others. You become dependent on their reactions, their approval, their gaze. And worse, you start adjusting yourself, bit by bit, to please them. You say what you think they want to hear. You act in ways that get the loudest response, not the truest one. You trade authenticity for performance. But what happens when the crowd changes its mind? What happens when the applause stops? You fall apart, because if attention is your identity, then being ignored feels like death. That's why you need something far deeper than attention. You need respect. And respect is not something you beg for. It's something you command through strength, through character, through the disciplined act of being someone worthy of it. Respect begins with self-respect. If you don't hold yourself to a standard, no one else will. If you don't value your own time, your own boundaries, your own voice, then people will walk right past it. Why shouldn't they? If you present yourself as someone who tolerates anything, who says yes to everyone, who demands nothing and sacrifices everything, then you've already taught the world how to treat you. Commanding respect starts when you stop performing and start standing. You stand for something. You tell the truth even when it's unpopular. You develop competence, not just in your words but in your actions. You show up consistently, not for applause but because you said you would. And you become reliable. In a world that's addicted to short-term gratification and emotional impulsiveness. Respect also comes from dignity. That means you don't lower yourself to be liked. You don't overshare to feel seen. You don't chase people who have already demonstrated clearly that they don't value you. There's a line you draw silently internally that says, I know who I am, I know what I bring. And I don't need to dance for your attention to prove it. This doesn't mean arrogance. It means clarity. It means you recognize the difference between influence and desperation. You're not trying to win everyone. You're not begging to be noticed. You are building yourself, day by day, into someone who lives by principles, not popularity. People who command respect are not the loudest in the room. They're the ones others turn to when everything falls apart. They're the ones whose silence carries more weight than another shouting. Because there's substance behind their presence. There's alignment between what they say and what they do. If you've been ignored and it's left you shaken, understand this. You don't need to get louder. You need to get sharper. Refine your thinking. Speak less but say more. Carry yourself with composure. Keep your promises to yourself and others. Stop asking, why won't they respect me? And start asking, am I someone who respects myself enough to walk away from disrespect? That's where power is born. Respect isn't handed out. It's recognized. And it's recognized only when you stop seeking it from the outside and start embodying it from the inside. You don't need to advertise your worth. You need to embody it. You don't need to prove anything to people who can't see you. You need to walk in such a way that your absence is felt more than your presence ever had to be announced. So stop chasing attention. Let them scroll past. Let them overlook you. Let them misunderstand you. And in the silence, build. In the shadows, grow. In the solitude, become dangerously competent, deeply grounded, and entirely unapologetic about who you are. And one day, when you no longer need their recognition, they'll recognize you anyway. Because respect is not given to the loud, it's given to the grounded.